Welcome to a deep dive that's all about confronting fear head on. We got a fascinating stack of material from a listener. I mean, it covers everything from these intensely personal spiritual texts like the Psalms,
all the way to, high-stakes political drama, and then, boom, apocalyptic prophecy.
Right. And it feels like they're all circling one central human problem, which is, what do you do? I mean, how do you maintain your hope, your stability, when the world just feels completely shaken and uncertain?
Exactly. And what's so powerful about this collection is that these sources give a very emphatic, almost unified answer. They provide a concrete instruction for facing what feels like total chaos.
And it's all built around this shocking idea that even when things look their absolute worst, that's when, as the texts say, redemption is near.
So we're going to trace this idea of, let's call it unshakable confidence, through three really distinct tests. First, the psychological foundation you find in the Psalm.
And then the big one, the historical stress test.
Yeah.
Daniel's defiance of an absolute, irrevocable royal decree, a law that could not be changed.
And finally, we'll unpack the core command of this entire dive. The instruction that Jesus gives his disciples about future turmoil.
That deeply challenging, totally counterintuitive mandate to stand erect and raise your heads. And this isn't just, religious doctrine. It's a profound psychological tactic against paralysis. All right, so let's start with that internal anchor. The psychological foundation for this kind of courage, which we find in Psalm 27.
Right, and the opening lines are, they're not a plea, it's not someone begging for help, it's a declaration.
A statement of fact, almost.
Exactly. It doesn't start by asking God for something. It asks questions about the self, but in relation to God. It says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear?"
The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom should I be afraid? It's such a mic drop moment for the psyche.
It is. It basically renders all the external threats irrelevant by just identifying the single absolute source of security.
So you're not just hoping for safety. You're declaring that your security is already a done deal.
And what's fascinating is the proactive mental shift it demands. It acknowledges fear exists. It asks, whom should I fear? But it immediately subordinates that fear to a bigger, unchangeable reality.
And this idea connects directly to the reflection on the Luke 21 passage, right?
It does. The core teaching is that even when distress and turmoil are, they're unavoidable, you are commanded not to be overwhelmed by the chaos outside.
Instead, you have to lift your heads with confidence.
It creates this powerful dichotomy. On one hand, the world might be falling apart, but on the other, the sources are telling you God's plan is unfolding.
So the confidence doesn't come from pretending the threat isn't real.
Not at all. It comes from trusting there's a purpose, an end to the story that's bigger than the immediate crisis. And that conviction is what lets you move from just thinking about it to actually doing something. And there's no better example of action than the story of Daniel.
This is where it gets really interesting. We move from personal reflection to the high-stakes court of King Darius. And Daniel is facing something much scarier than an army. He's facing the law itself.
And the specifics of the conflict are they're essential to get how revolutionary Daniel's courage was. King Darius issues this absolute decree.
Absolute.
For 30 days, nobody could petition any god or any man except for the king. The penalty for breaking this law was death in the lion's den.
Wow. So it was a total monopolization of loyalty.
Exactly. It was designed to test every single official. And Daniel, this Jewish exile who had, risen so high in the government, he was the real target. His rivals knew his strength was also his weakness.
They knew his routine.
And here's the core of his defiance. The accusers find Daniel praying, not just once, but maintaining his consistent routine, praying 3 times a day in his upper chamber, facing Jerusalem.
The sources are very specific about this. They say Daniel paid no attention to the decree.
It wasn't a hidden act. It was a defiant continuation of who he was, a declaration that the king's law had zero jurisdiction over his ultimate loyalty.
But wait, this wasn't just civil disobedience. This was a direct challenge to an absolute monarch.
And the men who set him up, they go to the king and they remind him of the law. They say it's absolute, irrevocable under the Mede and Persian law.
It can't be revoked. It can't be pardoned. Not even by the king who made it.
And that's the tragedy for the king. He was trapped. The law, once enacted, was above even him. And he really liked Daniel. The text says he worked till sunset to rescue him.
But he couldn't. He was forced to order the sentence. It's the ultimate political bind.
And you feel the king's pain. Before Daniel was thrown into the den, Darius says that really sorrowful but hopeful line, "May your God, whom you serve so constantly, save you."
Even the king recognized that only a power greater than his own irrevocable law could possibly intervene.
Right. And to make sure there was no funny business, no tampering, because the king really did want to save him, they sealed the stone blocking the den. Not just with the king's ring, but with the rings of his lords, too.
The system had spoken. The law was enforced. His fate was literally sealed. That night, you have the king just full of despair. He won't eat. He can't sleep. In his mind, in human terms, Daniel is already dead.
But when morning comes, the entire story just pivots. The king gets up super early, runs to the den, and cries out to Daniel.
And Daniel's response from inside the den is basically the living proof of Psalm 27's declaration.
Yes, he says, "My God has sent his angel and closed the lions' mouths so that they have not hurt me." And then he adds, "Because I have been found innocent before him and before you, O king, I have committed no crime."
So the miracle itself confirms his innocence, not just to God, but it also justifies his moral choice within that political system.
And the immediate result is the king's total transformation. I mean, King Darius isn't just relieved, he's converted, not just spiritually, but to the political reality of a higher power.
And he immediately issues a new decree, his own decree.
A global one. This wasn't a private memo. He wrote to the nations and peoples of every language wherever they dwell on the earth.
An imperial worldwide proclamation. And what did it say?
It said that the God of Daniel is to be reverenced and feared. He's basically endorsing the divine authority that just overrode his own unbreakable law.
So he declares Daniel's God a deliverer and savior,
whose kingdom shall not be destroyed. He recognized that the power that sealed the lions' mouths was the only truly absolute authority. And that's the perfect transition point. We go from a local political crisis to a global cosmic declaration.
That is the perfect bridge, because now we move from facing one hostile king to facing the ultimate existential threat, the world itself collapsing. So, if Daniel's consistency was the right response to an unbreakable human law,
then what's the right response when the laws of nature and even the heavens start breaking down?
And for that, we turn to the really challenging prophecy in Luke 21.
And Jesus describes a scenario that is so far beyond just political trouble. It starts with a military crisis. Sure, Jerusalem surrounded, people falling by the sword, but the scope just explodes from there.
It becomes cosmic.
Yeah.
The text says there will be signs in the sun, the moon, the stars. Nations will be in just, utter despair, perplexed by the roaring of the sea and the waves.
This isn't just a bad day on the stock market. This is the literal unraveling of the known world.
And the most terrifying part for me is the psychological impact. The text warns that people will literally die of fright.
Just in anticipation of what's coming. Because the powers of the heavens will be shaken. It's the ultimate existential dread where survival seems not only impossible, but, almost irrelevant.
Okay, so this is where I have to play the skeptic for a second. If the heavens are shaking, if the sea is roaring, if people are dying just from panic, what possible action can you even take? Isn't the only logical response just to collapse? Curl up in a ball.
And that is precisely the point the text confronts. It offers a command that is completely counterintuitive to that terror. Right in the middle of this utter destruction and psychological overwhelm, the instruction is active. It's physical. When these signs begin to happen, stand erect and raise your heads because your redemption is at hand.
Stand erect and raise your heads. Let's just unpack that posture for a moment. It's a physical choice you have to make in the face of psychological collapse.
It's a command against bowing down to fear. Think about it. When we're terrified, what does our body do? It curls inward. Shoulders hunch, head drops. We try to make ourselves small, protected. It's a fight or fright response.
But the text demands the absolute opposite. It demands a posture of confidence, of alertness, of readiness.
You're forced to choose a kind of pride of bearing, to stretch upward, to look forward, to assume a position of dignity and power, even when everything around you is screaming that you are powerless.
So it's like a psychological self-defense. By physically choosing a posture of redemption, of being ready, you are actively fighting the paralysis that the environment is trying to force on you.
It links straight back to Daniel. He didn't hide his prayer. He deliberately maintained a posture of dedication, which defied the threat. Here, in the middle of cosmic fear, you're told to maintain a posture of hope.
So the turmoil itself is the signal, not the ultimate problem. The fear is the test, and the response of standing erect is the answer.
Exactly. It's an active assertion that your foundation isn't based on the stability of the earth or the heavens, but on that same enduring power that was revealed in Daniel's story.
And the other sources confirm this, right? There was a responsorial psalm mentioned.
Yes, and it's beautiful. It calls on all of creation, dew and rain, frost and chill, lightnings and clouds, the whole earth to bless the Lord. It reinforces the idea that all these forces of nature that can cause so much terror are actually under the command of the same power that closed the lion's mouths.
The ultimate saving authority shown in the past is the same authority that guarantees redemption in the future. The source of power doesn't change, no matter how wild the waves get. So this deep dive has shown us that these texts, they really do provide a clear path for facing what feels like unavoidable chaos. We went from the personal declaration of fearlessness in Psalm 27.
To Daniel's active public demonstration of defiance against an irrevocable law.
And finally, we face that ultimate existential threat cosmic collapse, where the physical instruction to stand erect and raise your heads becomes a concrete strategy against total paralysis.
And the common thread through it all is that proactive choice of posture. Whether it's a posture of prayer or a physical posture of standing tall, it's choosing faith over fright.
What's really fascinating here is that none of these texts offer passive waiting as an option. They all demand an active, immediate response that it defies the logic of the crisis.
Daniel didn't wait out the 30 days. He maintained his routine. And the followers are told not to hide when the heavens shake, but to stand tall and look up.
It invites us to think that maybe true courage isn't not being afraid, but it's the deliberate, physical act of assuming a posture that contradicts the fear.
It's about anchoring your heart in that promise of redemption, no matter how overwhelming the evidence of collapse might seem.
So let's leave you with a final provocative thought built right on these examples. If Daniel's act of courage was praying openly 3 times a day, defying that irrevocable law, and the ultimate instruction is to stand erect amidst cosmic dread, what is the personal, deliberate act of trust or defiance you can choose today?
What is that specific physical action or routine that demonstrates your belief in stability right now in the face of whatever uncertainty you are confronting?